All right, we are live. It is 7:57. I'm just going to go ahead and give it a few moments and let people join, and then we will get rolling. It should be about 2 more minutes. And should just be one more moment. All right, it's 8:01. I'm just going to give it one more moment just to give a couple more people a chance to join, and then we will get rolling. Alrighty, it is 8:02. Let's get rolling here. So, hello everyone. I am back. I survived, barely. I think I've had enough time to catch up with everyone, thankfully. I hope everyone had a good 2 weeks. I know I did. I'm still trying to recover a little bit, but it was an amazing time, and I'm glad to be back. All right, so there are a couple, actually a decent amount of questions, but a couple of them were kind of grouped together. So I'm going to approach it from that direction. So that's going to do the questions. These first two sets are rather similar, so the answers are kind of going to be for both sets of questions from two different people. So the first question or set of questions comes from Jamie. Jamie was looking to start preparing some meals in advance and asked if I could talk a little bit about my own meal prep, like what I put into my meals and how much, my process, etc. So these are some great questions, Jamie. As far as preparing my breakfast and lunches in advance, I try to keep things simple, usually like single ingredient meals, and as well as keeping them the same across days, meaning, for example, I'll have hard-boiled eggs basically 6 or 7 days a week. I can cook them in a big batch in the oven, and they'll last the entire week. You have to Google the recipe for that. I first heard about it from Alton Brown, where you can essentially just do them in the oven. You don't have to worry about overcooking them. I like mine a little bit closer to soft-boiled, but that's an easy way where I can just cook a ton of them at a time and basically just have to peel them and put them away for the week. And in the morning or night before, I just pack my lunch bag by grabbing the eggs out of the fridge and then putting them in a container. It's very easy. So for lunches, what I usually do is, I'm sorry, as far as quantities, this is a generalization. It's going to be different for everyone. I usually go with 4 eggs, and that's somewhere a little bit under 400 calories. I pick that number because my personal preference is to have smaller meals earlier in the day, and then kind of ramp up the calories as the day goes on. So like my later meals in the day, like dinner and my bedtime snack, are much higher in calories than my breakfast and lunch. Since I sit most of the day and I do my workouts in the evening, I won't have too many carbs earlier in the day. And if I do, they're going to be from vegetables. So for my lunches, I'll usually, for the week, set up a crock pot on one day a week, like usually Sundays, and I'll just put some chicken breasts in there with some salsa, some spices like garlic, roasted tomatoes, that type of stuff, and I'll just let it cook down and become really tender. And I'll have that portioned out into equal portions for that many days of the week. Most of the time, I will do that 7 days a week. Weekends are when I kind of relax a little bit, but I also train on both weekend days, so I have a little leeway built in for that particular reason. In addition to the chicken for lunches, I'll usually pair it with something like baby carrots, broccoli slaw. Broccoli slaw is the bottom parts of the broccoli kind of chopped up finely, mixed in with like shredded carrots and cabbage, which is really good to add to like sandwiches and gives it some crunch. Goes really good with barbecue. What I don't normally do is I'll take the broccoli slaw and I'll dump it in with the chicken that's cooked with the salsa, and I'll mix it all together and put some hot sauce on top, and it makes it kind of like a really crunchy, spicy type of hard to explain, maybe almost like a chili almost, but I really like it. It's like a chicken salad, but it tends to be a little bit more watery. I also have some raw sauerkraut as well. So none of those things, the broccoli slaw, the baby carrots, or the sauerkraut, they don't require cooking at all. And you can essentially just, for a given week, set out a bunch of 7 containers and fill them up with those ingredients, and it's the same every day. So you're not having to weigh out stuff every day. You're just doing it once a week, and it's pretty simple. As far as preparing dinners in advance, I don't usually go that detailed. So what I'll do is I'll make a giant pot of meals, something like chili that I can portion out, or a meat slop. Beyond that, we'll tend to just cook single ingredients, like buy a gigantic thing of ground beef from Sam's Club and cook all of it at once and freeze it. And then dinner is essentially just combining the thawed-out ground meat that's already been cooked with other ingredients that don't require cooking, like salsa, cheese, sour cream, avocados, other veggies in a salad, using something like wraps, just to kind of being able to mix the ingredients up, but the base cooking is essentially already done. So to reiterate that, we don't do much cooking day of. It's mostly just assembling stuff we've cooked and frozen, or cooked and left in the fridge on 1 day or 2 days a week to make it easy and save time. As far as the amounts, since my breakfast and lunches are generally the same foods in the same amounts, and I also have a snack every single night that's the same food in the same amounts, I have a range of calories for dinner, and I kind of have different variations that kind of fit in there that I can rotate in and out, and I can make changes on the fly, but because I have a wide range to hit, it doesn't really cause a problem. I do it this way because it gives me a lot of freedom, meaning since dinner is usually my biggest meal, as a result of being fewer calories in the rest of the day, going out to dinner or if a social occasion pops up I didn't plan for, I have a big amount of calories and I've already gotten a lot of protein. So I can basically fit anything in, meaning like, let's just say my brother calls me and wants to go out for pizza and a beer. I can make that fit because I've gotten most of my protein in and I haven't had that many calories and I've eaten lots of vegetables. So by that point, the protein will make sure that I hit my protein goal, and all the vegetables will make sure that I'm already pretty full and I'm not hungry despite having not taken a lot of calories in. So regardless of what life throws at me or my social life throws at me, it's going to fit as long as I'm, considering sane portions, and that includes beer and things like wings. It can all work as long as you're kind of planning around them on both ends. So that pretty much covers what Jamie was asking. But similarly, Erica was asking a second batch of questions that are close to that, and she's asking, what are some tips for staying on target with your macros during busy periods? You've shown us your awesome packed this weekend lunches before, but what else do you do? She's asking. And she mentioned that when she's busy, the protein goal usually goes out the window for her. So like I just mentioned, in your particular case, I would recommend you get your protein in as early as possible and kind of prioritize the protein so that you have that freedom that when you're busy or things come up, you don't have to worry about it. It's so much easier to eat protein earlier in the day than it is to try to cram it in at the end, because that's no fun. Most people do sleep better and have a more relaxing evening when they can have their carbs in the evening. So that gives you the freedom that I'd have to worry about trying to cram protein in. You can just eat a carb-based snack and right before bed, and usually that'll make you sleep better too. So that's why I eat eggs and chicken breast and that type of thing earlier in the day. I do get comments from my coworkers asking me why I'm always eating the same things. Don't eat anything but chicken. But as a result of that, I do have the freedom to essentially eat whatever I want for my dinner meals, because mostly anything will fit my calories, because I usually have already arrived at or exceeded my protein goals before dinner. So I can't overstate how vital that freedom is to actually adhering to your lifestyle change. Having that freedom makes you not feel like you're going off the diet. Like, I don't like the terms I'm on a diet, off a diet. It's simply, this is just the way I eat, and this is the way I need to eat as a lifestyle to maintain my weight loss or continue to lose weight. So let's see. As far as the vegetables go, because I mentioned before, eating vegetables helps you stay full. You get all your micronutrients. But I know many people are concerned about eating vegetables when they've self-identified themselves as being really picky. I used to feel the same way. I've identified as being picky in the past, but with my own lifestyle changes and the amount of people I've worked with over the past year, I've found that being picky is really a state of mind. You're not really as picky as you think if you actually look at it. It's just that you have particular tastes of things you don't like and things you do like. And some of those are shaped to actual taste preferences, and some of those are shaped based on previous emotional experiences or events in your life that you've kind of associated with food. So yes, it is beneficial to get a large variety of vegetables and fruits to make sure you're getting all the nutrients and vitamins and minerals you need. But when you're trying to lose weight and eating vegetables makes you feel full, sometimes you have to be okay with just good enough as far as variety goes. So what I recommend doing is, if you feel that you're picky when it comes to vegetables, make a list of vegetables and assign them into 3 categories. Vegetables you like and are willing to eat. Vegetables you haven't liked in the past but you'd be willing to try again. And 3 is the no-no list. Vegetables you hate and you don't ever want to try again. They make you gag, whatever. So go through a list of common vegetables and assign them to each category. And when you're kind of figuring out what you want to eat in advance, build your food choices mostly from the vegetables you actually like. There's no reason to try to force yourself to eat something that you don't like. There's no point in that. You're more likely to stick with something if you actually enjoy it, and the path of least resistance is the one that's going to stick around the most. You should probably include some of the ones that you'd be willing to try again, but in doing so, you want to look at options to make them more palatable. So things like cooking them in butter and coconut oil, different seasonings, kind of changing things up from what you've tried before. One thing is, I used to hate broccoli, and sorry, Mom, the way you used to make broccoli, I was never a fan of. But recently, we started to roast our broccoli, which is you just kind of put it on a baking tray in the oven and put it on broil, and it makes it kind of not too soggy, but it's also not as crispy as raw. You know, it almost like browns the broccoli, and it's delicious. And that's pretty much the only way I'll eat broccoli. But it made me go from hating the taste and texture of all broccoli to actually enjoying and wanting and requesting broccoli and going for seconds on broccoli, which is something that if you told me 10 years ago I would do that, I would have called you a moron for even thinking that, because it would be impossible. So that's kind of something where changing up the seasoning or the preparation method can maybe move something that's on the category of, don't really like it, but I'll give it a shot, into the actually I like it category, because the presentation and preparation can make a big difference in that regard. And like I said, I thought that was necessary to mention about the vegetables, because for optimal health, your diet should be mostly fruits and vegetables with lean meats for your protein, or other lean protein sources to kind of fill in for optimal health. But when it comes to weight loss, if you're hungry, the best way to fill that in is with protein and lots of vegetables. So, all right. Our next set of questions comes from Joe. Joe is saying that he has a scale that has a BMI indicator, and he wasn't really sure what the deal with BMI was, and if it was a good indicator for a healthy weight or something he shouldn't be concerned about. Joe gave an example that kind of threw him off, was that like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, his BMI indicates that he's obese. And what's the deal with BMI not really taking into account muscle mass? That's a great question, Joe. For this type of question, I refer to an obesity physician that I'm an acquaintance with. He recently wrote about this, and as far as how important BMI is in dealing with obesity. And he said that it's different for everybody. There's a big difference. Someone that's say they're a bodybuilder, like someone in their 20s, they're obviously a very low body fat and their BMI is 27. You could take a postmenopausal obese female that's 5 foot tall with the same BMI of 27, and obviously there's a big difference there metabolically, hormonally, health-wise, because muscle mass and other factors are not being taken into account. Ideally, if everyone could get their body fat measurements taken through something like DEXA, doctors would just use that, but that's not feasible for many reasons, one of which is economically, because the cost is so high. But in general, a BMI above 30 is categorically obese, and there's 3 levels of obesity. Each has escalating risks for your health. And so class 1 is 30 to 34 BMI, and that's kind of a gray zone where the BMI level itself under 35 isn't really a risk factor in and of itself. It's really going to be looking at your waist measurements, your metabolic labs like your cholesterol, your blood pressure, your glucose, things like that, where once you're above 30, your doctor is going to start looking at other things to see where you are health-wise, because you're at risk. Above 35 to 39, the risks increase further, and then that's class 2. And then above 40 is class 3. And that's basically if you're above a 40 BMI, regardless of how much muscle mass you have, you want to get below that as quickly as possible for your health, for long-term health. So in general, if you are in one of the BMI categories and you're not a statistical anomaly like a athlete, I would consider The Rock an athlete because he was a wrestler and kind of grew up with lifting weights and building muscle mass and things like that. If you're in one of the BMI obese categories, you probably do need to bring your weight down to get you into a healthier place. Just because you don't have any health issues right now doesn't mean that you won't have them in the future, because the BMI is applied to a general population that generally indicates a result of a higher waist size, and there's going to be health dangers and that come in correlation with that. So below a BMI of 30, like in the area of 25 to 30, is overweight, and that's where doctors are really not going to look at BMI as being relevant. They'd look at your body composition and, like I said, your health markers and metabolism markers like blood pressure, glucose, cholesterol, etc. So one measurement that I use for myself is waist to height ratio. It's really just how tall you are versus the size of your waist. Now, men and women have their waist at different points in their body. So if you want to look up a waist to height ratio calculator, that can maybe give you a better indicator if you're concerned about your muscle mass not being taken into account with your BMI. In general, it's below 54 ratio is considered healthy. Above that, you're considered overweight and at risk. So it does have a similar demarcation point for like below this line is okay. above this line is where you start to see risks escalating as you go up the numbers more. All right, let me see. All right, the last question that was asked isn't really a question so much as a request to discuss something, a recent situation. So I was talking to Dana back and forth about my recent trip and how I was dealing with the after effects, meaning that there was lots of yummy food and I probably ate 5,000 calories a day for 8 days in a row. She had asked me to discuss how the trip affected my scale weight and what I was going to do about it and how I felt about it, because summer's coming up, many people will be taking vacations, and that can be an issue for some people. Some people are lucky in that regardless of what they eat on vacation, their scale weight doesn't change too much. Some of us that have lost maybe, say, 50 pounds in the past and above, your water weight's going to fluctuate massively. And I'll use myself as the example here. So to quickly recap, I was away at Disney World since June 5th. I tracked a couple things, but for the most part, it was a vacation for me totally, from the internet, from tracking my food meticulously. I won't say it was a vacation from exercise because I was pushing a heavy stroller around for many miles a day. But I didn't, even though there was a gym at my resort, I didn't actually go to the gym. There was really no time anyways. But it was a total vacation, complete from everything that's part of my normal routine. So I wasn't worried about it. I thoroughly enjoyed myself without restriction. I probably ate more than I normally would. I ate dessert like twice a day. I ate my kids' dessert when they didn't finish them, but I didn't stress about it at all. I knew that there was going to be a water weight gain, and I was okay with that. Coming back, I came back on Friday. I had a wedding the next day, and I mentioned to Dana that I wasn't going to weigh in for a while because I knew that the weight would be up and it might have a negative effect on my mentality, and I was hoping to avoid that. But she asked me to go ahead and weigh in anyways because she said it would help her in preparing for her upcoming vacation. So I decided to do that, and now I'm talking about it here. So over the course of those 9 days, I gained roughly 12 pounds. I'm actually surprised it wasn't more given how much I did end up eating and how tight my clothes felt. But today I'm back to being mostly trapped in a chair. And I'm back to, my habits that I was doing before I left. So honestly, I did expect much worse. I've seen much worse. I've gained probably, I think the worst I've ever seen was 34 pounds on the scale in 6 or 7 days. So I wasn't really that upset. To some of you that have not seen something like that before, that would probably be pretty upsetting, but it was kind of just like, that's not too bad. I've seen a lot worse. I was actually only upset because having gained 12 pounds of water weight, it negatively affected my workouts more than anything. I do a lot of pull-ups, and adding 12 pounds to your pull-ups really kills your ability to do a bunch of reps in a row, and that kind of pissed me off a little bit, but it is what it is. So in regard to how I would proceed from here, is the old me would have likely done a few different things, including trying to add in more workouts, cutting back my calories to somehow compensate for all the food that I ate, cutting back on carbs to drop the water weight. Instead, I'm just going to go back to what I was doing up to the day I left. I have a few more social events coming up this weekend. I have like my mom's birthday on Friday. My company picnic is at an amusement park, so there's going to be eating all the crappy park food. And then Father's Day is on Sunday, and I don't plan on skipping out on those events and trying to eat closer to my normal habits just because I just had a vacation. I'm not going to do that. But what I would have done before I would have used those upcoming events to continue the vacation, meaning today's Monday, I would still be in vacation eating mode, but I'm not doing that. 4 days is enough. I can return to my healthy eating habits. I can bring my calories back down to what I normally eat. And then if I choose to eat more for my mom's birthday, I'm going to do that. But it's not an unbroken string of days like that where I say, screw it, I have a vacation again next week or whatever. I'll just extend it. And that's how you get into trouble. It's really what you do the day after your vacation coming back. So I have 4 days with which to work out hard, eat like I normally eat. And the idea is that I'm going on vacation again briefly around 4th of July. So the same principles are going to apply. I don't feel any regret. I don't have any remorse. I don't have any stress over it. I enjoyed myself. I overate, and it's okay. Like I said, I have another vacation in July, same principles will apply. Rather than take off the 2 weeks between now and that vacation, I plan on getting rid of those 12 pounds of water weight just in time to add them back again in 2 weeks. And I'm okay with that. And like I said, I'll take off those 12 pounds of water weight without doing anything drastic. I'm not going to cut out carbs. I'm not going to reduce my calories too drastically. I'm not going to punish myself with cardio. I'm just going to go back to my normal routine, and they'll come off. Even if they don't all come off, they'll come off, and I'm not worried about it. One of the reasons for that is, I don't feel that you should punish yourself for enjoying yourself. It's kind of a vicious, nasty cycle. But I know that if I restricted myself severely before or after my vacations, my food choices during those vacations would likely be worse, and I would feel bad about it. So I feel like instead I've made the best possible bad choice. Is not a bad choice, but I enjoyed myself, and there's no regret. I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to say about it. But I feel like this is actually a good area for follow-up discussion. I'm interested to see what everyone has to say, or if there's any further questions. If you have a vacation coming up and you kind of want to just talk about it, each person's different in how they handle this type of situation. So if you kind of want to discuss that further, we can do that. But in general, I would say that the stress of worrying about this type of stuff is a greater danger to your continued forward progress than is the actual overeating. And that's how I feel, where it's like if you worry about it so much, you're causing yourself more harm than if you just let go for a week with the express intent of just getting back to your habits the day you come back, and not dragging it out where I was like, oh, I was on a cruise for 2 weeks and I ate like crap, so I'm going to eat like crap for the rest of the month. That's the problem. It's what you do when you come back the first day is that matters the most. So that was all the submitted questions. But like I said, I would like to see some follow-up discussion back and forth on this topic because I think it's an important one. So I look forward to that, and I will talk to everyone soon. Have a good night.